Hey folks, Rob Avis here from Verge Permaculture. Just wanted to go live today and tell you about an event that's happening this weekend. This weekend on Saturday, October 20th, we are hosting or co-hosting a potluck with the Calgary Permaculture Group. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about why permaculture groups are important and why I think it's super important for you guys to show up. So if you are in Southern Alberta, and you've got some time available, I'll put all the details in fact, I already have put all the details to the potluck in the show notes below. So you can click on the Calgary Permaculture Community Group link and you get all the details. So it's at Winston Heights, 5 o'clock on October 20th. How's it going, Farmer Mima and Dan Roth? Nice to see you guys. I wanted to talk a little bit, though, about why these permaculture community groups are important. So if you're not from Southern Alberta and you can't make this week's potluck, maybe you'll be inspired enough by this talk to go and start your own community group. So chances are, if you're watching this channel, you have a pretty good understanding of what's happening in the world and where global fragilities might exist. And perhaps you're concerned and maybe, in a lot of situations, the people that come to us are scared and depressed and don't really have a lot of hope around what to do about this. And one of the most important things that you can do around managing and dealing with these global fragilities is actually to start a community group. And that might sound like a small action for massive problems that seem completely out of scale. But after going through this a little bit, I think you'll recognize that it's actually probably one of the most profound things that you can do. So what's interesting about all these problems in the world and how massive they are is that generally we tend to want to go in the opposite direction and be extreme in the exact opposite way. So when we see climate change as an example, when we hear about climate change, it tends to spawn or spur people into doing extreme actions that will try and put wrenches in the machine, similar to how the Luddites might have managed technology back during the Industrial Revolution. The Luddites wanted to try and break the very machines that they felt were going to be detrimental towards society in general. And it was ironic because they ended up using machines to break the machines, which is a little bit ironic. So we tend to want to fight extremes with extremes. And if we go back in history, I think what we'll find is that using extreme measures to fight extreme measures has not worked out a lot of times. It generally leads to war, civil war, or global war. I think some of the most successful people that have created change are the ones that have used pacifist techniques, such as Martin Luther King or Gandhi. And so creating a community group is kind of like that, except that unlike Gandhi, you get to eat. You get to eat incredible food. You get to meet with incredible people, and you get to talk about what's possible as opposed to what's going wrong. And so Michelle and I, 10 years ago, when we got back from all of our travels, co-founded the Calgary Permaculture Community Group and have been part of it in one way or another over the last decade, because we recognized that the change that needs to happen has to happen at a political level, but it also has to happen on an individual level. And most people think that working at that individual level is not really going to have any effect in the overall system, because you're just one person trying to make change to, a train wreck that's potentially going to happen, that's moving at 100 kilometers an hour and has, 3 million metric tons behind it. So it's got a lot of momentum. It's got a lot of inertia behind it. And so how is one person or a group of small people in a community group going to make a change? And so I think what we have to recognize as individuals is that we own our politicians. Our politicians are beholden to us. We actually hire them and pay them as individuals. And unfortunately, the political mechanism in North America, and I would say anywhere in the Western world, is a little bit broken in that it's very difficult for us to to speak our voice to these politicians. We don't have too many mechanisms available to us. We can call them, we can try and organize a meeting with them, we can write letters to them. And, ultimately the goal with all of these things is that we're trying to create signal in a whole bunch of noise. But inevitably, with the internet and email and Twitter and everything else, the noise level is going up. And so it becomes harder and harder to actually create signal. And so these community groups can actually inform a really important signal. And I think it's important to understand what political level we're going to try and have influence over. Because a lot of times what we're trying to do as permaculture designers and permaculture practitioners is we're trying to meet our needs while enhancing the ecosystems around us. And inevitably, if everybody in the world did that, a lot of these problems that we're facing, whether it's social inequity, environmental destruction, nutrient deficiency, sickness, a lot of these issues, that the root cause of them is that people are not able to take care of themselves. And that can come in the form, lots of different forms. That can come in the form of not being able to harvest gray water, use composting toilets, sometimes growing your own food, harvesting rainwater. I think I said that already. Potentially putting solar panels on your roof, and on and on. I mean, we could have a whole conversation about everything that we want to do that's illegal. And the thing with these community groups is that if we use permaculture design to create them, then we're going to come at creating community with a strategy of approach. And we can actually use a really intelligent strategy to help both create resilience amongst the people in the group, create connections, create relationships, which is really important. But if we add one additional layer of strategy into that group, we can actually have a really beneficial and positive influence on our politics around us. And so you might be wondering how we could do that. And before I tell you, one of the kind of core principles of permaculture is to pacify things. And so when we're thinking about water harvesting, what we're doing is we're slowing down the flow of water so that it has time to sink and infiltrate into the ground. And we can use that same concept of pacifism, of slowing and storing energy, and of using the most passive approach in the way that we work, in the way that we design these community groups. And so at some point, as a result of these potlucks, the Calgary Permaculture Group is going to get bigger than we can manage. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell who said that when a group gets beyond about 100 people, it's no longer a functional group. And so the idea with the Calgary Permaculture Group, in the same way that ecosystems breed new ecosystems, or plants breed new plants, or animals breed new animals, we need to create our community groups such that they have the ability to breed into new community groups. So once it gets to a critical mass, we form another group, and the community group will end up looking at the geographic locations that people are coming from, and then make a decision as to where that new group is going to be geographically located. So let's use Calgary as an example. And the Calgary Permaculture Group is this core group that meets on a monthly basis. At some point, when we reach that peak number of people, the group should technically breed into a new group. And if we're designing this group properly, what we should do is we should actually name the community group after the political riding that it lands in. So instead of just calling it Calgary Permaculture, it might be Calgary Permaculture Ward 6 or Calgary Permaculture Ward 10. And by doing that, the local politician will recognize that there's a group of people, old, young, male, female, of all races, dogs, chickens, cows, I mean, whoever's showing up at these groups. And they'll come in and they'll realize that we're talking about pressure canning or backyard chickens or composting toilets or gray water systems. And their eyes will grow exponentially large, because they'll recognize that they don't actually understand what these terms mean. What is a composting toilet? What is gray water system? Why do people want chickens in their backyard? And they'll look around and they'll see that there's 100 to 150 people meeting, of a diverse group, old, young, male, female, all sorts of races. And they'll recognize that for every person that's there, it represents between 10 and 20 people within their immediate social network. And so 100 to 150 people could mean 5 to 10,000 people within their political riding, which will mean political death if they do not vote for what it is that we want. So never did we ever have to tell people what we don't want. Never did we have to go and create an extreme reaction to what has occurred. All we have to do is talk about what we want. We have got to point our canoe in the direction down the river that we want to see it go. And by meeting on a monthly basis and having these super important conversations and sharing food and drink and making it fun, making it not guilt-based, making it not fear-based, we get to do that without ever having to invest any negative energy. And so that's why these monthly potlucks are super important, and why I'm inviting you guys to come out. There's no cost to them. Just you bring a dish to share with people around you, bring some interesting conversation, bring a positive attitude, and let's share a meal together. The potlucks in Calgary happen on the third Saturday of every month, and mostly so we try and keep them at the same location so you don't have to constantly be looking up a new address. And so we're kind of coming into our fall season right now, and so this weekend we're going to be talking about pressure canning and food preservation with Carmen Lamoureux from Urban Farm School. Carmen's been pressure canning for most of her life. She's a complete expert at it, and I'm really excited to be hosting her at this event. And so bring your questions and your comments, and I'd love to hang out with you this weekend. So that's the reason that these permaculture community groups are really important. It's super important that we approach change with optimism and positivity. We're not going to encourage people to change their life out of fear and guilt. And a lot of times the change makers in our world use fear and guilt to make change. We have got to create a better system, a system that makes the old one obsolete. So just a couple of other quick announcements, guys. If you're watching, thanks for the comments. I've just kind of been focusing on talking here. This coming week, next week, I should say, on Wednesday at 3 p.m., I'm going to be interviewing a gentleman, Chris Magwood. This is the only book I have from him right now, as the other book is upstairs. And so he's written a book called Sustainable Home Design. We're actually hosting him for a workshop in Calgary. What's the date on that, Michelle?
November 11th.
On November 11th, he's going to be doing a one-day workshop on ecological home design. That's available on our website, and I will get the link on that. We'll talk about it next week. So 3 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time on this channel. We're going to be doing an open interview with Chris Magwood on his newest book, Designing Your Own Eco or Sustainable Home. And it's an incredible book. I've been reading it every day for about an hour, and I'm having a ton of insights about it. So I think you guys will too. So come on out, bring your questions. This is the start of a brand new series for us. So twice a month, we're going to be interviewing an author from New Society Publishers who also published this book. And it's going to range on everything from permaculture, raising livestock, gardening. I've even got a couple of folks like I think Richard Heinberg's going to be on the show. He wrote The Party's Over, so peak oil and collapse related topics, which sounds funny that we just talked about being optimistic, but I think understanding the mechanisms of some of these things, these macro things, helps us to be more strategic in the way that we design things like community groups. So come out next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time to listen to Chris's interview. We're going to be starting to go live a lot more on YouTube over the coming months. I've got a lot of really exciting things to announce to you, but we'll dole them out one at a time just as we're ready to release that information. So keep tuned. If you're not subscribed to the channel and you want to be notified when we go live, hit the subscribe button. If you hit it again when the bell comes up, then you'll be notified when we go live. And hey guys, just a quick favor, if you found this video interesting and any of our videos interesting, it always helps us a ton when you hit that thumbs up button. That really helps the algorithm in YouTube determine whether or not my content is any good. So I really appreciate it when I get a thumbs up from you, if that's possible. So thanks so much, guys. I've put all the information for the potluck in the show notes below, so you can go and grab that. And I hope to see you guys this weekend, Saturday, October 20th, 5 p.m. at the Winston Heights Community Centre here in Calgary. Okay, folks, have a great day, and we'll talk to you guys all real soon.